Hello and welcome to today's video all about making ATCs. Now I've made a little template here for the artist's trading card, which is what ATC stands for. It's a little kind of thing that you can swap with other artists to get a small piece of their work, and a lot of people use them for birthdays and that kind of things, and that's what we're going to do in the group that I'm in at the moment. So this is the size of an ATC. It's 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and I find it quite useful to have a little template. So what I'm going to start doing is this piece of background fabric, which I know is much bigger than this, but I'm going to make several ATCs, so I just thought I'd show you how to start. And I've got a cat on my shoulder, which is not helping things. Thank you very much, cat. Come on, out of the way. There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm going to use some of this fabric here to cut little sort of strips and squares to make a kind of patchworky background. So that's what I'm going to do to start. Sorry about the cat interruption. It's a regular part of my day, unfortunately. Now the ATC is quite small, so that you don't want huge big strips of fabric, otherwise you'll never get to, the patches will be bigger than the ATC itself, and there's no point in patching them then. So I'm just going to cover this in all sorts of shapes and sizes, just to create a nice texture. Just like this. I'm sure you get the idea, so I'll show you again when I finish them all. So I've pulled the pieces in place and I've pinned them down, because I thought that you could probably work out how to pin a piece of fabric in place. So what I'm now going to do is do a little running stitch around them, hand stitch in machine embroidery thread, which is like a stripy thread, a variegated thread, just because it's quite nice to add a little bit of contrast in. I forgot to tell you as well that this is dyed with walnut ink, which is quite a nice sort of subtle colour, unless you use too much of the ink, of course, which then it gets very dark indeed, but it's got nice little subtle shading in it at the moment. So I'm now just going to do a little running stitch around each of the little patches and sew everything into position. Doesn't have to be perfectly neat. Ouch. But you get the idea, so I'll sew around everything and then I'll show you what we've done at the end. Right, so I've stitched around all the little patches now, all little running stitch all the way around, and as I said before, we don't need all of this, so this is my little template. And now I don't mind if these get cut, because I quite like all the frayed edges, as you can probably tell. And there are no real rules about ATCs other than the size, so don't think that just because I'm patching all mine together that yours have to be like that. It's just a case of decorate them however you fancy. So I'm going to choose this little section here because I like that. So I should turn it over and cut it out, because it'd be easier to cut it out from the back. There we go. Not entirely sure how well that's going to come out. Oops. Right, I can always chop it off later. There we go. And those of you who know me will know I absolutely love that sound. we go. Now, because it didn't come out very well on this edgy side, pop this here and cut it out. There we go. And that's my little patch. So I'm going to try and cut this out and use a paper backing. So I'll do the same here. This is a bit of cardboard. So I'll trace my shape just as I did before and cut that out for later. Sort these lights out, sorry, there's a lot of shadows. There we go, so those in theory should be the same size. And then I shall stitch that to that. So now I'm going to add some stamp detail into the background. So it's just a normal stamp pad in brown. And I've got this, what's it called, dandelion. So we'll start with that one. I press it down quite carefully because of the little different layers create different heights for the stamp, so it's more important to kind of cover it quite well. There we go. Another little, not floral exactly, but a foliage design. And you don't have to copy this exactly, this is just get some kind of ideas down. This little tiny one here, which is surprisingly useful actually, fills in all kinds of little gaps. There we go. Now I added a few of these little, I don't know what you call them, I think the Americans might call them brads, I don't know, what we used to call butterfly pins when I was in school. Little thingamies. So I've put one in each corner like that. Now this is a piece of scrim, which I've just put a little piece of that on there. And now I've got these pretty little buttons because I know that the lady who's going to get this really loves buttons, so I'm going to sew these down onto here now. And as I said before, these ATCs can be decorated exactly how you'd like them. I like them to be individual for the person that's going to get one. Often we've been in groups where, can't find that one, there we go. They're going to be given for birthdays and then people just make a big pile of them, and I think it's quite nice to have something that you know that the person is going to particularly like. So as I say, that's why I'm using the buttons for this one. There we go. Let's tie that off. Now, as I said before, I'm going to put a piece of card on the back of this one. Just thinks it adds a little bit of stability to the whole thing so it's not quite so floppy. If I can thread this needle, there we go. And I'm just going to do a simple buttonhole around the edge of this one because I don't have a machine that does a zigzag stitch. If you did, you could put the, just finish tying this, there we go. If you did have a machine that does buttonhole, you could put the card like that, run it around the machine so that, not buttonhole, zigzag stitch, so that you put the zigzag on a long stitch, quite narrow, quite close together, and it'll stitch on and off the edge and kind of bind it like an overlocker would. Or obviously you could use an overlocker, that would be very handy if you don't need to then cut it all to size like I've done here. But as I don't have either of those, I'm just going to hand stitch buttonhole around the edge, and as I say, I quite like the frayed edges, so I'm going to just keep them as they are. We've got the card so I can write on the back of it, and she can know who's sent her card, her ATC. That being another good point, you can also, let me just have a quick look in here, my drawer of goodies. This is a card blank. You could just put it on there like that, so you don't even need to send it as an ATC if you don't want to. So I should now buttonhole around here. And that should stop the majority of the fraying. It's also blanket stitch. It's probably a better way of calling it because it's for edging, not for doing buttonholes. So blanket stitch around the edge. Anyway, you get the idea, and I'll show you again when it's finished. And here we have the finished ATC. So I've just put a blanket stitch all the way around, just hand stitched, and it won't completely stop it fraying, but it'll stop the worst of it. And there's the back. I just the two places, because I ran out of thread, or when I finished it off, I just tied it round here a couple of times and then pushed it back through the underneath the card so that the ends are all hidden. So then I'll write on the back that it's for the particular person and happy birthday and who it's from, and hopefully she'll like it. And so thanks for watching, and do feel free to share this video or subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much for your time.